Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another session of Bizarre Financing, how to start, buy, or expand any business with little or none of your own cash. We're going to talk today about taking the plunge, how difficult it is for people to do what I call pull the trigger. In other words, everything's in front of you, everything's available. There is nothing that should inhibit you from proceeding. And yet, some people they don't know where to start. They get frustrated, they get fearful, and it comes time to actually do it, and a whole bunch of things stop folks from getting this thing done. So I'm going to address that today, and it's called How to Take the Plunge. How to take the plunge. The greatest obstacle to starting, fear. I want you to remember that word because it's something that we all need to learn how to expunge from our core, because it's fear that gets us into more procrastination than anything else. By now, if you've been a student of Bizarre Financing for a while, you know you have the tools. And during the course of being a student of Bizarre Financing, I know because I talk to many of our students from time to time, you guys are excited about the possibilities out there. You must now take that energy and use it to overcome your fears. And what fears are we talking about here? They're meaningful. There is the fear of the unknown. Many people are very comfortable with what they know, but the minute they step into that area where they're not sure what can come at them next, that fear of the unknown just becomes very paralyzing. The fear of failure is a very powerful fear that keeps many of us from even trying in the first place. The fear of looking foolish. I have to tell you, here I am on this webinar today, and my throat isn't clear. I feel like I'm looking very foolish, but I have no fear of it because we're all human and we all have our weak parts. And if I worried about looking foolish, I'd never get out there either. It's important that you overcome these things because they can really inhibit you. There's the fear of loss, and this is the one that really hits analyticals really hard. Folks don't like to lose. And the idea that once you make that effort, once you actually engage that thing, then you can lose. And if you're worried about that or you have a fear of it, it can really inhibit you. And this is the one that blows me away, is the fear of success. Some people are so comfortable with failure, so comfortable being in that place of stress and struggle, that the whole idea of being successful is off-putting to them. What do I do with that? How do I handle that? And there are people who actually are afraid to move forward because they truly are afraid to succeed. It puts them in that whole new place and they're not sure they'll know how to handle it. You will sense these fears most often when the time comes to meet someone, sign something, or do something that you do not feel prepared to handle. And the reason it's important to get a sense of that is when you know when you're going to come across these things, it gives you the opportunity to prepare yourself because you can anticipate them, and with anticipating them, you can start to get mentally prepared to overcome them. Successful people have the same fears as unsuccessful people. The difference is successful people proceed despite the fear. I find myself in situations many times with as much as I know and as many times as I've experienced them where some fear sets in, but I just don't let it stop me. You just push through it and you recognize that it's actually a fairly flexible emotion, meaning that you can really push it. And when you push it, it does tend to go away. To overcome the fear, preparation and planning, key. If you're prepared and you've really planned out what you're going to do, it tends to help overcome those fears. You take the simple steps first because that gives you some confidence moving forward, and you start to see moving forward isn't as bad as you may have thought it was. And if you can adopt a mental attitude on your first attempt to do anything that it's only practice, somehow when it's only practice, we don't fear it because after all, it's only practice. And even though we may be doing it in a real sense, but if we're treating it as practice, it helps to, again, remove the fear because it takes the importance off of it. It's only that importance sometimes that really culminates in that fear. Accept mistakes as a learning experience. I continue to make mistakes. I've been at this 50 plus years, and every once in a while I make mistakes, sometimes more often than I'd like. But I accept that they're learning experience. I accept that learning is a lifelong enterprise. And if I want to get really good at anything and I want to stay good at it, it's always going to be a constant learning experience where you keep making mistakes. Work with a buddy. When we gave the live events and we had our trainings in large meeting rooms, we used to have exercises where we would pair people up and give them assignments to do together. And it was amazing how working with a buddy energized people and started to remove a lot of the fears because they got a sense they could count on their buddy. In the military, the idea of working and fighting for your buddies is actually more powerful than fighting for yourself. The military uses that a lot to help people overcome their fears and to be able to be more forceful and even aggressive on the battlefield because you're fighting for your buddy. And if you feel that your buddy's there to back you and you're fighting for your buddy, it puts a whole new strength into the things that you're able to accomplish. I love the buddy system. And if people that have an alignment with your goals, buddy up with them. Take a lot of that road together. And I think you'll find it's a great support system. And then, of course, you got to stay focused on the dream. If you start to allow yourself to think about the challenges, think about the problems, think about all the things that could go wrong or could happen, that's where things can get a little off-putting. But if you focus on the dream and you stay focused on the dream, then all those little eddies that you constantly are walking through tend to get small as opposed to big. And the dream becomes the dominant thing in your focus. Now, believe in yourself, and that's a really important part of this too. Everybody that's on these calls with me, you're here and you've taken special effort in yourself to make yourself adept at getting yourself into a good, successful business. You're already doing things that the vast majority of people don't do. You've learned certainly things that the vast majority of people don't know. And that puts you way ahead of those folks. So please recognize that in yourself and believe in yourself and know that you can do this. And that belief in yourself will really help you persevere to overcome those fears and those reluctance areas where you find things hold you back. After pushing yourself through the early steps, that momentum will carry you through the more difficult steps later. The most important thing is to get going. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with that first step. It's the inertia of not stepping forward that tends to hold you back as well. And so just making those little baby steps, getting yourself out there actually doing it. I once had this aversion to exercise. I just couldn't get the idea that I was going to go out and run, or I was going to do weightlifting or any form of exercise. I just couldn't get into it. And a very good friend of mine said, look, here's what you do. Get yourself exercise clothes, i.e. sweats, tennis type shoes, or whatever it is. You have a workout outfit. And don't even think about working out. Don't even think about that. Just put on the workout outfit. Just put it on and watch what happens. So I did that. I got myself some sweat clothes and proper shoes to do all this stuff. And then I just put on the clothes. And by just doing that, all of a sudden, the whole idea of taking the next step, which was doing the exercise, wasn't a big deal anymore because I had now prepared for it. And it's just the idea of taking those little baby steps that help get you going, that once you start building that momentum, it all takes on a life of its own and it starts to move very quickly. And once you're started, you'll be amazed at how your fears fade. But it's so important to just get started. Take that first step. Do those first things. Get that momentum working. The greatest obstacle to succeeding, the negativity within ourselves and from others. A lot of times we have this little voice that's going off inside our heads. You can't do this. This isn't going to work out. You're not really entitled to have a business of your own. What makes you think you're good enough to do that? And then if we're not saying that to ourselves, other people are saying it to us. Other people who may even be jealous of who we are and where we're going because they're not going there. They're not taking the steps that'll get them there. They don't have the thinking capacity to undertake these type things, and they're telling us we can't do it. The negativity, whether it's coming from within ourselves or the people around us, is very dampening on our efforts. And it's difficult to replace years of negative programming with strong positive programming. The average child, by the time they're 5 years old, has heard the word no over 80,000 times. 80,000 times. And you're not even 5 years old yet. And so the whole concept of society wanting to keep us in a certain discipline and place creates this rash of negativity around us that envelops us from the time we're babies on up through the time we're just young toddlers and children. So that by the time we are into our teenage years, we may get a little rebellious in our teenage years, but believe it or not, we are still negatively programmed from all of that programming that we got all that time. You can't do this. You're not good enough for that. It's all enveloping. And yet to be successful, we must first master those pervasive little voices in our own head. That little voice that constantly is telling us what we can't do and what we shouldn't aspire to and what we're not worth. Very pervasive little voices. And we discuss in Bizarre Financing the tools and the techniques for taking more control of our subconscious and the little voices in our head to start turning those into positive voices. And it's really key to getting out and getting our momentum going and getting ourselves to really energize for that positive view that we want for ourselves. We must convert them from those little voices, from the no, I can't, I'm not, to the yes, I can, I am. And this is perhaps the greatest challenge of all, and it's one of the things that you must do for yourself. And for the next 90 days, if you're on this call today, I'm going to ask you to write this down on a piece of paper somewhere, put it down on a note that you're going to make to yourself, and do this. And then for the next 90 days, you must concentrate on replacing the negative programs with their positive counterparts and building your strong self-image of that person who can do anything you set your mind to, as that person who has the capacity to be incredibly successful in your own business, and to start building that image about yourself, because you're going to build an incredible building on yourself as the foundation. But if your foundation isn't strong, you're not going to be able to build a really tall building on it. And creating the strong self-image is an essential part of what you need to do to be successful. And fortunately, we cover it in the early chapters of Bizarre Financing. And if you haven't reviewed that in any while, go back there. Go back and remind yourself how that's done, and then undertake that 90-day exercise. Now, if family, friends, or work associates are negative towards your goals or self-image and insist on sharing their negativity with you, you must distance yourself from them. And I know that's hard for people because they're my friends, they're my family, There's a bond there. I can't just ignore them. I can't distance myself from them because they'll be insulted. They'll think ill of me. All that stuff. If your family and the people around you aren't positive towards you, and they don't get it that you need to be in a positive place, and then you tell them, look, I don't want to deal with that negativity. I really need you to be positive with me. I need you to support my efforts. I need you to let me know that you have faith in me, and they're not going there. Then the smartest thing you can do, at least for a foreseeable time into the future, is to distance yourself from them. Because if you do not, they will keep pulling you back into the boiling water that you've been sitting in, because that negativity will keep working at you until you distance yourself from it. And that's a hard piece of advice. And this is the most painful advice we give in this course, and perhaps the most difficult, And the second most painful advice that we give in this course is turn off your television set or your PC, all right, or your phone. And the reason for it is they are distractions. There's all this stuff and drama going on around you, and they get addictive, and you feel like you got to see the next show. You got to accept the next tweet. You got to do all this stuff. In the meantime, you can't make any money with that stuff. Okay. It's not doing you any good at all for the building of a successful financial future. It's a distraction, and you've got to get past it. So it's the second most painful advice that we give in the course. And take that time that you would have spent doing those things. Take that time for the next 90 days and use it to reread over and over again as many times as possible each section in the workbook. And I always say workbook, it's online, but it can be printed and as a workbook if you want to actually have it in print form. But if you access it with your PC or your tablet, it's a workbook. And if you review as many times as possible that section, if you're spending the same time you would have spent watching an hour TV show for the fake laughter and fake applause that go on in the sitcom, okay, if you took that same time and you reread one of the important chapters that gave you a key tactic or a key method or a key concept that could help get you into business, or an idea that would help you develop a new product, or whatever it is that would make your financial efforts successful, just think of the difference in your life outcome if you took that same time and put it into the constructive tools and materials that are around you, and especially within the Bizarre Financing course. So you use that time plus time driving in your car to re-listen over and over again to the audio portions of this program. You caught in traffic? Think of it as a blessing, okay? I got an hour. I'm going to be sitting in this car for an hour behind that silly driver in front of me who's texting and doesn't even advance when the traffic advances, right? And so you sit there getting frustrated. You know what? You're listening to a great audio. Your mind gets caught up in all the stuff that you're hearing and rehearing, and all of the methods and techniques and the positive visions that you get out of those programs. And instead of having this frustrating time in traffic, you have made that time productive for you. So don't get frustrated with traffic. Turn it into the best time for your brain possible. Use it to enrich yourself. Each review will create a deeper level of understanding, making all of the information more usable. I have people that I've talked to through the years. Remember, I've been giving this program since 1980. So I talked to a lot of people who have been through it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 5 years ago. And the folks who have been really successful, tell me the same thing. They live with this course. They live with the audios. They live with the videos. They revisit over and over again until they become second nature to them, until they just automatically think in the terms and in the positive ways that these educational and training videos that we put together are there. And the reinforcement, the way in which they become a second nature to that person, so that when a situation pops up, they don't even have to think about it. Immediately in their brain pops up the solution. Immediately in their brain pops up the technique or the method or the strategy that is the very strategy and technique that they can use to overcome that challenge. This is very powerful stuff, and the people who are the most successful use the tools to so heavily reinforce it in themselves that every tool, every technique, every method literally becomes second nature to them. The next 90 days is a period of behavior modification, because if you aren't smashingly successful, you are in need of some behavior modification. You are. And that's true of every one of us. If we're at a place where we're stalled, we need some behavior modification. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome or a different result. If we're not getting that different result, then it's time for some modification. There's something going on inside of us that's getting in our own way. And I'd like you to think of the next 90 days as your opportunity to clear that, get past that, and change that and modify that behavior so that the new behavior starts to work for you. And now you have a chance of getting out of that niche or that rut that you have been in and onto the success that you're looking for. And it will require tremendous self-discipline to overcome the habits of a lifetime. We're creatures of habit. We get in the habit of doing the same thing the same way over and over again because that's human nature. Okay, and we've tried to change it, and if we only think about it for a few days, then a few days goes by and we're right back in the same habit again that we were before. So it's going to take tremendous self-discipline. So be prepared for this. Be thinking self-discipline. Be thinking the fact that if you see yourself deviating from your mental diet for the things that you're going to plan to do for the next 90 days, you got to snap yourself right back to attention and say, nope, for this 90 days, I am doing this. I am heading here. I am undertaking this. I am going to modify my behavior, which I see as self-destructive in this way. I'm going to modify that over the next 90 days. That's taking control of yourself. That's taking control of the self that will produce your future outcomes. And it's an important part of a process to really move yourself ahead successfully. But you can do it. You can do it. Our most successful graduates did it by immersing themselves in the information and the techniques taught in this course. They took each section one at a time and line by line and followed the instructions. They make this manual for themselves their business builder's Bible, and it will guide you to the fulfillment of your dream. Everything you need to guide you through this business starting or business buying and business succeeding maze that you have found yourself in is in our workbook. It's in our videos. It's in our recorded webinars. It's in our audios. It's all there. It's been put in there year by year, block by block since 1980. And through that time, remember, we've lived through different economies. We've lived through booms. We've lived through busts. We've lived through inflation. We've lived through deflation. We've lived through booming stock markets. We've moved through busted stock markets. And all along the way, we've addressed the challenges, addressed the changes, addressed all the different things that were happening at that moment in history and how those challenges were overcome. So you have an array of information and tools available to you through Bizarre Financing that can accommodate your needs and your progress in any type of economy, any type of business environment, in any type of industry, in any type of business, with any type of dream or goal that you have. So use it. It's all there for you. Now, there's a summary of the steps to take, and I'm going to go through them because it's going to help you to really get your arms around, all right, what am I going to do here? What are the actual steps I'm going to take to really modify my behavior, make sure that I am an absolute force to be reckoned with in the accomplishment of my goals to succeed in business ownership? I don't care if you've read it 100 times, you're going to read it again. Reread the entire material again. Start from the beginning. Set the time aside. Remember the time you were going to spend watching television, the time you were going to spend playing on your cell phone, the time you're going to play games on your tablet or on your cell phone. All that time is going to go away now, right? You're going to reorient that time. You're going to reread the entire materials again. And you know what? When you do that, I will guarantee you will see things in there you didn't see before. You will read a concept or a method or a strategy, and you'll read that and you say, I read this before. I never saw that. How did I miss that? Because that's the way the human mind works. You don't catch everything the first time through. And it isn't until you read it the second time, third time, fifth time, 10th time that all of a sudden that idea jumps out to you and it has meaning to you that it did not have before. And that's when you're starting to master those methods, those techniques, those strategies, the ways in which these deals can get structured. And all of that starts to become more usable for you and more real to you and more accessible for you, more on your fingertips and the ability to grab it and grasp it quickly. And you're going to get a feel for the techniques, tools, and strategies that you didn't have before you went through this rereading, this re-listening, this re-watching that you do during this period of time. You're going to listen to the audios as many times as it takes for you to feel ownership of the materials. It can't be something that I know where to find it if I need it. No, it cannot be that. Okay. A lot of people feel, all right, I know how to use Google, man. I can find anything anytime I want it. I know how to get down there and find it. That's not good enough. For the things that are key to your life, they must be part of you. They must be innate in you. They must be at your fingertips immediately to address any need or situation that comes your way. And the way that you do that is by hearing things over and over again. It's no different than being a great baseball player. You're a great pitcher. How many times have you thrown that pitch across that plate? How many times in practice have you thrown that ball to that catcher? If you're the batter, how many times if you get up there in the batting cage and you swing until you perfect that swing? And it isn't until you've done something, not 100 times, not even 1,000 times, but 10,000 times, that swing becomes perfected. That all of a sudden now you can hit that ball with the strength and the force and the accuracy that you could never do that if you didn't do it 10,000 times. If you're serious about being in business, if you're serious about being at that level of success that you have envisioned for yourself, it's practice. It's hearing again. It's re-listening again. It's rethinking again and again until you've worked it from every angle and you know it cold. You want to prepare your financial statement, both business and personal. You're going to get asked for it, right? You're going to get asked for it. You want to get a loan, a personal loan, a business loan. You want to be the buyer of a company. But I want to see your financial statements, especially if you're going to owe them some money as a result of the transaction. All right? So you got to have it. You got to have it. All right. Now, maybe yours looks like garbage. And you say, wait a minute, I don't have any. I don't have any net worth. I don't have any cash. I don't have any this. I don't have any that. There is that negative voice again. All right. So when I see this, prepare your financial statement, business and personal. If my financial statement looks like garbage, okay, then I want to figure out, how do I get it looking good? How can I get my financial statement looking good? I may not be able to do anything with my personal financial statement because that's just me, right? But maybe I can do something really good about my business financial statement. In other words, I form a new entity. It's my buying company. I have an investor or people who have strong financial statements that are akin to me or like me, that I've impressed, that I find that they're willing to look at business ventures with me, not even necessarily buy, but they're willing to look at them with me. So I form my company, and then I put together a financial statement of the owners, a composite of the owners of the company. Now, anybody that company looks at, well, we want to borrow some money, the seller wants to see our financial statements to know if we're real, that's what we show them, okay? Because I thought it out ahead of time, see, figured it out. How can I get a good financial statement in front of people instead of the one I got? But I got to prepare them, and I want to get them together in advance. I want them ready. Somebody asked, I want it ready. So I want to start this 90-day concentrated period for subconscious reprogramming. Now, I'm 75 years old. My subconscious is pretty well programmed, but it was pretty well programmed when I was 30. It was pretty well programmed when I was 40. It was pretty well programmed when I was 20. And in those number of years, it got pretty well programmed. However old you are, that subconscious programming has been resident in your head for the last 10 to 15 to 20 years of your adult life. It's set. And you ain't going to get rid of those bad parts of it if you don't take 90 days of a concentrated period for doing specific techniques that will tell your subconscious that it's wrong about you, and to reprogram it for different expectation, to see different things, to bring different things to your attention, to unpin your self-confidence in a way that it doesn't today. And that's going to take a concentrated period of time. But remember, there's a section in the workbook. It's in the A section that we go through the reprogramming of your subconscious mind. Go to that section. Let it lay out for you what you're going to do over that next 90 days. And then you select a regular time dedicated to this activity, and you stick to it. And you stick to it. You do not let yourself deviate for 90 days off of your plan to reprogram your subconscious mind, to reinforce the positives within yourself, and to expunge the negatives, expunge them. Now, I want to just remind you really quickly of one technique, okay, for changing the way you vision things and your subconscious works. I go through an example in the training video. If I tell you, don't think of the Statue of Liberty, everybody can picture immediately this woman standing in New York Harbor, hand in the air with a torch, the spikes coming out of the band on her head there. Okay, you can picture the book under the whole thing. You picture, and it doesn't do any good to say don't do that, because your brain and your subconscious ignores the don't and goes right to the image, whatever it is. On the other hand, if I start talking about a very beautiful lake in upstate New York where the mountains rise steeply right out of this gorgeous lake, the water is so clear that when the water is 20, 30 feet deep, you can see the bottom. That's how clear the water is. And that on any given day, if you're standing on the shoreline, you can see a young couple maybe in a canoe paddling along at the edge of the lake. Now, while I'm describing all that, was there anybody thinking of the Statue of Liberty? I don't think so. Because your mind replaced the Statue of Liberty with this other very positive and very enjoyable image. And that's the way you reprogram your subconscious mind. You don't tell it not to do stuff. The minute you feel it doing that negative stuff, you snap yourself to attention, and you have ready and waiting positive images about yourself, about the things you want to accomplish, the things you want to do, that you immediately start to think about and push the negative thought out of your head with those positives. And you do that over and over again for 90 days, and you will have expunged those negative thinking processes out of your head. But you got to do it, and it's got to be repeated over and over again with energy and enthusiasm and emotion put behind it. And that's what drives those negative images out of your head. So there's a method there. Okay, I go over it in great depth in the materials. Use the funnel approach to zero in on your dream, and use meditation and visualization to refine and enhance it. Putting those positive images in your head, thinking them through, visualizing them, allowing yourself to see, so that in your mind you're seeing the outcomes that you want for yourself. You're spending the time relaxed at times, sitting in a quiet room all by yourself with nothing going on but silence around you, maybe even darkness, your eyes closed, and envisioning the fine future that you want for yourself. That's telling your subconscious mind exactly what you want. Exactly what you want. And after a while it says, okay, and it starts to deliver it to you. Very important part of the process, getting clear on your dream, getting clear on what you want it to be. Set your long-term, intermediate term, and short-term goals, and then put them in writing. Put them in writing. If you do not put them in writing, they wave and they weave and they distort and they transform and they disappear. But when you put them in writing and you exercise the discipline to review them and update them and revise them and refocus them, they're in writing, and even these readjust are put in writing, they become finite, they become clear, they become immutable, and they get done. Use the case studies and the various strategies you have learned to develop your detailed step-by-step plan. It's not enough that all the techniques be in the workbook. It's not enough that all the methods be on the videos. It's not enough. That's not going to get you there. What's going to get you there is you're digesting them, understanding them, incorporating them into the fulfillment of your dream on a step-by-step plan, because the methods are all there. You just got to translate them down to your particular dream now. The checklists are there, the methods are there, the strategies are there, the structure. So you got to select them. You got to decide which ones you're going to use. You're going to decide which ones are going to get you where you want to go. You may have 2 or 3, and so those are the ones you're going to work on to make happen, different strategies, different structures. But you're going to know where you're going, and you're going to set it out in a step-by-step plan. In writing. It won't move on you that way. If you have a bad day, it'll still be there. If you get discouraged one day, it'll still be there. If you don't do that, 2 or 3 days of discouragement in a row, I'll guarantee your plans are out the window, gone forever. You can't win that way. You have to have it in concrete. Now, that doesn't mean that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and it's not getting you where you want to go, just because that's your plan, that doesn't mean you don't shift or you don't change. But you have the tenacity built into the writing. And at some point, if it needs to change, yes, you have to change it. But it'll be a conscious change, not because you just gave up and quit because it wasn't in writing and there was nothing that carried your momentum through. Take action and believe in yourself. Okay, take action. This is the hardest part, but the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a first step. And the very thing that you're going to do in this 90-day diet is you're going to start taking some actions. You're going to set goals. You're going to put them in writing. You're going to do this. That's action. You're not being passive anymore now. You're taking action. You're not sitting there saying, oh, I'm going to do this tomorrow. Next week, I'm going to get around to getting myself into the things I got to do to get in business. Next week never comes, guys. Next week, those same habit patterns that had you wait until next week are going to that week have you wait until the next week. And after that, the next week. And after that, the next week. And I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but if I don't repeat this, a lot of folks won't get it. So it's important that you get it. Because with these changes that you're going to make in the way you think, the way your subconscious mind works, the self-confidence that you have in yourself, the knowing that you know is going to make all the difference. And then take action. Actually take the first steps. And understand they're little baby steps, and that's fine. Take action. Because a body in motion tends to stay in motion. A body at rest tends to stay at rest. That's physics, folks. That's physics. And it works with your body. It works with your mind. It works with everything. Once you're in action, you're in motion. You got momentum. You got inertia. And that's when good things can happen. The batter can't hit the ball unless he's in the batter box. You have learned the answers in Bizarre Financing. They are all there, and there is nothing to fear because you're going to know this stuff cold. And then you need to exercise commitment. Remember, this is not just for you. It's for your family and a better way of life for generations yet unborn. This is not go eat a fish. This is how to fish. This is not only how to fish, but it's how to catch fish in big nets. It's how to know where the fish are hiding and go down there with that big net and scarf them up, not enough for you, but enough for your family, enough for your community, enough for your country, enough for humanity. That everybody wins when you learn how to do this and do it well. Review and realign monthly at first and later every 6 months. No plan is perfect out the door. No plan. You could know every piece of our materials cold and write a plan for yourself. And at some point, you're going to review that plan. And I don't care how good you were when you wrote the plan the first time. You're going to review it. And you're going to see, in light of what's happened, how is the plan working out? What's not working in the plan? What's not getting me where I need to go? Where is this plan breaking down a little bit? And you're going to review it. And you're going to fix it, but just in writing, and you're constantly going to work with it. And you're going to realign it monthly. I would have a set date. On the first Sunday of every month, I sit down with my plan and I review it. And I say, over the last month, where did this get me? What went right? What went wrong? What went wrong a bunch of times? Is there something I should be doing differently so that it starts going right? Review and realign monthly. Your plan is a living plan. It deals with people. It deals with occurrences. It deals with things going on in the environment around you. It goes on with shifting politics, shifting economics, shifting people's attitudes, shifting contacts that you have. You got new people you know now that you didn't know before. And now that you know those people, maybe you can leverage that relationship to do something you couldn't do before. So you got to constantly review and take stock of what do you got now that you didn't have then, that you could leverage better than what you planned for the stuff that you didn't have at that time. Okay? You got to keep reviewing it and keep working with it. You want to clean up your personal finances. There is nothing that puts more pressure on people than having to worry about getting their freaking bills paid, than worrying about what's going to happen if I can't meet my rent payment. What's going to happen if this big bill comes due and I don't have the money for it at the time that it comes due? What's going to happen if? The best way to handle that is you get your finances in order, okay? And by that, it means that you take a really good stock of what your living expenses are. You cut them back wherever you can. You make sure that you've got more coming in than you have going out, even though it means sacrifice. But now you're building up stuff instead of tearing it down. Now you're getting stronger every day instead of weaker every day. Now you're starting to feel more comfortable in your own skin than you were before, okay? And cleaning up your personal finances is a really big thing so that you relieve yourself of all that pressure. You know that things are now heading in the right direction, that the base under you is getting better and better every day. And clear up your short-term obligations, those things that hit you all the time, and keep creating some of that negative thinking because how am I going to handle that? How am I going to take care of that? The less things you have gnawing away at you, the less things that are coming at you negatively automatically get stronger. You want to pay off or renegotiate debts which cause high monthly obligations. If you got a high monthly obligation, okay, then maybe you can stretch it out over a longer period. You can renegotiate it so that you don't have to pay as much every month right now, and that'll help relieve you of some of that pressure. Tighten your purchasing of non-appreciating assets. What are you spending money on that isn't doing you any good? And how do you stop that? Think it through. There'll be ways. Clear up your credit if possible. Start an emergency fund. All these things just make you feel better about life and yourself. Form your purchasing business as outlined in the Everything Wholesale Manual. If you don't have a purchasing company, you are missing the boat, okay? I have National Diversified Funding Corporation. You know that, right? That's my main company, actually. I have DBAs up the wazoo for that company. I have National Diversified Home Care. I have National Diversified Decorations. I have National Diversified Media. I have National Diversified everything. So that whatever I need to go out and buy, I don't care if it's personal or business, I buy it under that DBA. Why? Because that enables me to negotiate it as an industry insider of that industry, and I'll get the doggone stuff wholesale. I'll get it below wholesale. I'll get people who want me to have one, because if I'm in that business, they want me to know about them, they want me to use their product, and they want me favorable to their product, and they'll either give them to me sometimes without even charging me, or they will charge me a very low amount because they want me to be familiar with their product. So Everything Wholesale Manual, it's in the tools. It's in the tools section of the website. Go in there and get that. Reread that. Use it to set up your DBA, your buying company. It'll save you a fortune. It'll take a lot of financial heat off you. You'll see how easy it is to form a business. You form a DBA and you got a business. You form an LLC and you make that LLC your buying company. And you go out and you get a sales tax number. You do all the little things that make it a real business. Because now when you go out to use it as a buying company, anybody checks it out, it's real. It's registered as an LLC. It's got a bank account. It's got everything. Okay. And it tells you in the wholesale manual how to name it so that it can be used for anything. Like my National Diversified. National Diversified can be put on the front end of anything. National Diversified Brokers, National Diversified Human Resources, National Diversified whatever. And I'm instantly a buyer within an industry of anything I want to buy. And you'll see how easy it is to form your business. You'll save money on putting your businesses together. So if your first company is a buying company, and now whatever business you're going into, whether you're buying that company or starting it from scratch, you now have a vehicle for making the purchases cheaper and easier. Okay, so every business you'll ever go into now, that buying entity is positioned to get what you need cheaper. Obtain copies of the books and publications mentioned in the various sections as you review them, and then study them. So much today is done online, so much easier. I don't get much in the way of printed materials anymore. I'm able to get everything on my screen, and you can too. Visit the websites using the links in the various sections and get a feel for the vast array of tools available to you via the internet. The internet has put the world at your fingertips. The world. And even things that only take place in foreign countries, the internet tools, Google, will translate it for you. So before, you didn't know French, you couldn't find out about that because it was a French thing. It doesn't matter anymore, okay? You get adept at identifying the key phrases and words that describe what it is you're looking for information about. You are powerful today. Nothing can elude you anymore. And you don't have to be rich to get the knowledge and the know-how. It's out there. It's available to you. And you want to practice the creative attitude in all aspects of your life. Defer judgment, think positive. Be a solution to the problem instead of part of the problem. Don't take no for an answer. I love this about young kids, where they're still in that barrage of the word no, right? But they're not at the point where no means no yet, okay? So they keep asking, Mommy, can I have this? Daddy, can I have that? And no, no, no. And they hear it thousands and thousands of times, but every once in a while, Dad or Mom gets tired of saying no, and they say, yeah, okay, all right, have it. The problem with adults is they learn to take no for an answer at some point. You're an entrepreneur. You don't take no for an answer. Not if it's something you want, not if you believe in yourself, not if you know where you're going, not if and you believe in your heart and your soul that this can be done, this can be yours. Begin your search for the right business. Decide on buy or start. Are you going to be buying this company that you're going after, or are you going to be starting it? Because you can get there either way. I prefer to buy. Buying's head and shoulders better than starting. For all the reasons that I hope you know. If you don't, go back and read the text. Because there's 1,000 reasons why it's better to buy than to start. But either way, know where you're going. Choose several approaches, then start to concentrate on the one or ones that suit you best. It doesn't matter that somebody used a technique and it was highly successful and it was exactly what you wanted to do and the technique worked great if the technique doesn't fit you. So what I mean by that is 4 personality styles, right? Promoter, analyst, supporter, controller. The 4 personality styles are different. You got to know which one you are. And you want to use the techniques that fit your personality style. And the fact that somebody was a promoter and you're an analyst, but because they were a promoter, they went out and used this technique, and boy, it worked great for them. That doesn't mean that technique would work great for you, because you may not be as good a communicator as they were. You may not be as open and as friendly and as warm and as appealing to that other party as they were. So you got to go at it the way an analyst would go at it. Okay? The beauty of all of our techniques and our methods is you can pick the ones that are going to work best for you. You're not stuck with any 1 or 2 or 3 or any 100 for that matter. There's hundreds of approaches that you can take. And after all the years that have transpired since 1980, they've all been brought into our course. We keep updating this course all the time. Begin reading your local newspaper in depth at least once a week, especially the business section. Now, I live at this little community called Canyon Lake. It's a little community in California, halfway between Los Angeles and San Diego. We have this little newspaper here that serves the community. Okay, this is a gated community, 5,000 homes around the lake. It's got a little community newspaper. I read that thing every Friday, the Friday Flyer. And why? Because as I'm just thumbing through it, I'm seeing little things of people and what they like and what they're doing. And this isn't a magazine that sets the world on fire. But you know what? I pull connections out of there. I pull insights to there. It's the things that are going on that I wouldn't know are going on. And then at those events, I can meet people or I interact with people there. But at least I know what's going on. I have a source of that information. You are a conduit of information. You are a user of information. It's your lifeblood. And whether it's local, whether it's community, whether it's state, whether it's national, whether it's international, you want different sources that you've identified and cultivated for your particular needs that feed information constantly coming into you of the very type and nature of information that you want, so that your mind and thoughts can quickly surf through that information and pull from it those things that can help you. And you're going to kiss a lot of frogs before you kiss your prince, right? Okay, and so you're a lot of information. It doesn't matter. Oh, hey, look at this. And you know what? Your subconscious, once it's programmed right, you'll glance at the front of a newspaper and your eye will go right to the article that's the one you need to see, because your subconscious mind will pull it from the environment for you. That's one of the beauties of the human brain. It's incredible. You just got to get the tool trained right. Subscribe to one or more publications that will keep you informed on critical shifts and trends, or that can stimulate new ideas. And your list should include things like Forbes magazine or Entrepreneur. Entrepreneur has been one of the most fantastic magazines for entrepreneurs, and it's been that for the last 40 years. Its publication is pretty old now, but they've kept it relevant. They have wonderful articles. They tell you what the hot anything is. They give you case studies and stories about people who have succeeded in different things in entrepreneurship. Yeah, there's a lot of garbage in there, and there's a lot of hype, and there's a lot of stuff in there that probably doesn't have any value. But all you need is one good idea, and it paid for the time you spent reading that magazine that week or that month. Okay, the Wall Street Journal. It ain't what it used to be in many ways, as many newspapers aren't. But the Times, the New York Times, the LA Times, business section still tells me a lot of what's going on out there. The Wall Street Journal, they have that wonderful column on the left-hand side of the front page. You scan down that real fast, and it tells you, bang, all the articles that are in that Wall Street Journal. And your subconscious mind, I guarantee you, will pull out as you're scanning down that the one that you should go read. They're fabulous. They'll help you get where you want to go. Even a publication that deals in your favorite hobby or sport can give you ideas. Make time for browsing the internet as a way to search for information, new ideas, and possible business opportunities. Get out of the house and start meeting the people. We talk about couch potatoes, right? All that time you spend sitting in front of that TV set, all that time you spend on the computer playing games, it's all dead time to you. Dead. Get out of the house. Start meeting the people who are necessary to achieve your goals. I tell this to everybody. One of the most valuable things you can do is pick a charity. Pick a charity. Any charity. The Heart Association, United Way, anything to do with any of your major diseases, any of your social benefit groups. All those charities, all of them have benefactors, people worth mega money who are supporters and behind those charities. And they attend their events. They take part in their fundraising drives. They are involved. They're usually there because of a passion. My brother-in-law died of cancer, so I support the Cancer Society or whatever it is, because I got a reason. I got an emotional reason why I really want that organization to accomplish something and be successful. And I care. And you know what? When I meet somebody else there who cares, I automatically care a little bit about them. And they automatically care a little bit about me. And we automatically have something in common. And we automatically have an opportunity to talk to each other and share what's going on in our lives if you pursue this properly. And so all of a sudden, you're building allies of people of substance. And you're doing that instead of sitting on your couch. You tell me which is going to get you further in life. If you are working at a full-time job, meet people for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, okay? And I don't know any job that ties people up. Even for that 8 hours a day, there's always the half-hour lunch or the 45-minute lunch or the hour lunch, or if you're in some businesses, 2-hour lunches, right? Or there's before the day starts. Before work actually starts, you can meet them for breakfast. There's after the day is over, you can meet them for dinner. There's all these times that if you're not utilizing those times, those are times that can make money for you if you know where you're going and you got your plan down. Use weekends and evenings for meeting and planning. If you plan to start a business, do a market survey by a certain date. Okay, I'm going to start a business and it's going to make widgets. It's going to make widgets. And before I go spend a lot of money starting this business to go make those widgets, you know what I should do? If those widgets or a similar type widget would be sold at a supermarket, I should get down to the supermarket with a pad and a pencil. And as people walk out the door, I say, excuse me, sir, excuse me, ma'am, I'm looking to actually start a company that manufactures widgets. And what I'd like to know is just to ask you, do you use widgets? And then I would ask them 1 or 2 questions about the widgets. People will stop. They'll talk to you. They'll tell you what they think of widgets. They'll tell you that they buy them. They'll tell you if you ask them how much they'd spend for them. They'll tell you a whole bunch of stuff if you just ask them. And then you gather that data because you ask it in an organized way. You're asking a very specific, predetermined set of questions, and you're asking it of enough people that by the time a few hours has gone by and you've talked to 20, 30, 50, 100 people, however long that takes, you got a pretty good idea of what your buyer of widgets is going to think about the widget you're planning to make, because you're going to ask the right questions. And then instead of spending a whole bunch of money doing something that ain't going to work, you can avoid spending the money. Or if you learn what it is that really is the hot button of people who want widgets, man, you're going to design your widget so it's got plenty of that. Contact one potential investor per week. I don't know any investors. You ain't doing any charity work if you don't know any investors, okay? You haven't spent any time on the internet identifying angel groups. You don't even have to spend time on the internet. Just go into our research center, go into the place where we talk about the different sources of raising money, right in Bizarre Financing, and you'll see dozens and dozens of links to angels, dozens and dozens of links to venture capital, dozens and dozens of links to every type of entity you would want to finance your business. So don't tell me you don't know any investors. You just haven't taken the time to go learn and find investors. You just haven't taken the time to go do that, and you haven't created the plan to go do it. And it's time you did it. Prepare a business plan by, okay? How many of you have a business plan for the business you want to go into, where you've laid out A to Z, where you're going, what you're going to do, how you're going to get there, what techniques you're going to use, where your money's coming from, how big you want it to be by such and such a time, and what kind of methods you're going to use to market the product? I just reeled off a few things. And you have a written plan to go do that. I would almost guarantee you that the number of you have already said, look, I plan to do a business plan, but I plan to do that 2 years ago. I never did it. If you don't have the plan, it ain't going anywhere. And if you don't write the plan, you're not going anywhere. And if you don't exercise the mental discipline to write the plan, you're not going anywhere. So please prepare a business plan, pick a date by which you're going to have it done by, and then post with a magnet a note on your refrigerator door that you got to see every time you go in there to get a drink or a snack or anything else. Business plan due by this date. And then underneath that, you might have, in order to have it done by that date, I got to start it by this date. I got to be finish this section by this date, this section by that date, this section by that date, this section by that date, so that every one of the items that has to be in the business plan, you got a date for that. That has to be done by. And then you have to have the discipline to sit down and actually do it. And when it gets tough, too bad. It's time to think it through. All right? You do that, and 90 days from now, you're going to be in a way different place than you are today. Now, if you're sitting there saying, for example, I just use accounting as one of the things that you should know in business. You should know something about accounting. You shouldn't be an accountant. That's not necessary. But you should understand a debit and a credit. You should understand a balance sheet. You should understand a P&L. You should understand a cash flow statement, because you're going to get those if you go out to buy a business on the companies you want to buy. You got to know what you're looking at. So it might be really a cool idea to take accounting 101, some community college. If you are comfortable with your accounting, but you're not really good at sales or marketing, well, you might say at the local junior college here, can I get a course in marketing? Probably. Can I go online and take a course in marketing? Probably. What do you need to get better at? Okay. Find a class for it. Find a training for it. Pick a date by which you're going to do it, and do it. If you're planning to buy, you need an activity plan. You need something that keeps you in motion. So you're going to develop a plan, and that plan might be call 5 ads per week. In other words, you're going to look in businesses for sale. You're going to look on the internet. You're going to look at all these different places where you can identify people who are advertising that they have a business for sale. And you're going to commit, call 5 ads per week. After a while, guys, it's the law of numbers. You make enough calls, you're going to get occasionally a yes. You're going to occasionally get somebody who says, I was waiting for somebody to call on that ad. Send out 25 prospecting letters per week. I'm just going through some of the techniques we train you how to do here. Inspect one business per week. Make one offer every month. There should be a commitment on your part to do it, and you should be following to see, how am I doing on this? Am I getting it done? Because it's all in the law of numbers. If you are doing none of these, then nothing's going to happen. But if you're doing just that little outline right there and you're disciplined in it, it's all in the law of numbers. At some point, you're going to hit a number, and the guy's going to come up, or the gal's going to come up and say, yeah, this is great. I was waiting for somebody to call on my ad. And now you got a live one to talk to here. You're in motion. Good things are starting to happen. Contact several business brokers about your goals. There are business brokers galore out there, okay? They don't cost you a dime until they find you something. And they don't even cost you a dime then until you close the deal. And if you negotiate with them and you take the time to develop a rapport and relationship with them, I get them to cut their commissions. I get them to charge the commission to the seller, but then they put it back through escrow into my deal, reducing the amount of down payment that I have to come up with. Because at the end of the day, a business that they sell has value. A business they don't sell is just costing them time. Visit one new office per week. Practice your seller analysis by stopping at a for sale by owner and testing out the 10 questions on it. I'm going to ask you this question. Everybody should know that there's 10 questions you ask a buyer. And the 10 questions are in our workbook, and they're designed each one to do something very specific, from build your rapport and your cosmic bond with the seller, to provide you critical information, to pre-frame and pre-position you as the right buyer for that business. Those 10 questions work for you. And if you're not out practicing and asking those questions to sellers, then you're not doing yourself justice. Because at some point, knowing how to ask those questions, knowing how to use them properly, will help get you the very business that you want. Remember, if he's not a flexible seller, he may not respond. But don't worry, it's just practice anyway, and it might lead to your first purchase. And the word is just practice anyways. Those words are very important. Because remember, we're going to fool our subconscious mind. We don't want our subconscious mind burdened by the fact that this is for real and my fears set in. We don't want that, okay? So what we want to do is we want to get an attitude. It's just practice. Just practice. So when you get the first guys you're going to go call, You don't have to take it that seriously. You don't have to overly stress yourself and burden yourself. You're going to go out and practice. And the most successful folks I know, they've been doing this 30 years, and every time they're just practicing or out there having fun, meaning it's a game, and they don't take it seriously. Right down to the closing, they don't take it seriously. When I say don't take it seriously, believe me, they're disciplined about it, but they're not in love with the business. They're not anything until the deal is done. And up until that point, they're doing what they know they have to do, and they're enjoying the journey. They're enjoying the process, and they're allowing themselves to be themselves in the process. And that's when life gets really fun. But to be there, you got to know the stuff in Bizarre Financing cold. Find your partners. Your goal is at least $50,000 or more in cash. Now, that's for a tiny business. You want to find $500,000 worth of investors, $1 million worth of investors. And if you're a real aggressive son of a gun or daughter of a gun, you want to find a couple of $1 million in investors. You want to find lenders that if the deal is right, they'll fork up $5 million, $10 million, $20 million if the deal is right. And you're going to know who those folks are in the field that are like the field that you're going into. So you can get all that right out of our research in Bizarre Financing. You go in those finance groups. We'll take you through several hundred venture capital firms, for example. And we'll show you how to link onto their websites. We'll show you how to link onto an Excel spreadsheet that will actually take you through all their names, all their websites, links, what they like, what they don't like, what industries they like, what industries they don't like, what size loans or size investments they want to make, minimum and maximum. They'll take you through everything from geographical areas that they prefer. It's a little bit of work. You work your way through that sheet. You start eliminating all the ones that aren't supporting what you want to do. But now you're left with a handful, 10, 20, 30. They're right on the money for you. These are the guys who love to be part of what you're doing. A little bit of homework, but I don't know, time well spent. A charity you like and take a project by and then write a date in there. If you aren't doing charity work, you are missing out on the golden opportunity for an entrepreneur to hobnob with the movers and shakers of your community. That once you establish a commonality with them, and you're already halfway there because they're at that charity because they believe in that charity and like that charity, and if you're harmonizing with them right there for that, it isn't a far reach for the next step to find that they're interested. What do you do for a living? I do this. Okay, what do you do? So you're now having a conversation. This is as natural as falling off a log. And if they like your projects, they like the things you're working on, don't be surprised if they say, can I get in on that with you? Because wealthy people, guess what? They have money to invest. Don't like leaving it in the bank account. They want to see it out in a nice project somewhere, making a lot of money for them. It's hard for people who need money for businesses to realize that at country clubs, at these charity organizations, that these folks with lots of money hobnob with each other. And a subject of conversation is finding great things to invest in. They got to do something with their money. And you should have answers for them. You should have a way that you've created for yourself to have access to them. And then you should create a plan, a pitch, a way to bring to their attention what you're doing. And if you do it right, you don't even have to beg for the money. You just let them know what you're doing. And in fact, the best fundraisers I know, or people for raising money out of these groups, are people who do not seek directly the money. They just tell people what they're doing, okay, and the great returns that they're looking at for their investors. That's it. And then lo and behold, a lot of times those people will just turn to them and say, can I get in on that with you? See, if you're out there trying to beat the bushes for money, you're beating a bad bush. You put yourself in the vicinity, in the presence of people who have the money. You put yourself in situations where discussing what you're doing and your plans and where you're going is just a natural part of conversation. And then the fact that they have money, they will then come to you and say, can I get in on that? Establish relationship with the professionals. Sooner or later, you're going to need them. Attorneys, accountants, appraisers, bank and loan officers, other lenders, local zoning and planning officials, management consultants. So you want to have people that are in your contact base that are in all of these areas that are conversational to you. You can just call them and say, hey, John, I'm working on this. What do you think? You do that with the right attorney. He's going to say to you, if it's the right attorney, he's going to say, I've got a client that does that. Or I've got a client that just did this with someone would probably work for you. I'm going to say work for you. His company would finance you, would provide marketing services for you. Whatever it is that you're having this conversation about. You got allies, okay? You got people who extend your reach, extend your access to resources. Use our advisor line. Call 805-497-1000, 805-497-1000, our advisor line. You call us, okay, if you have a question, for answers to important questions and referrals to needed resources if you need them. Develop a clear mental image of your target company. Okay, you've all heard me talk about RMA annual statement studies. Okay, so I know if I'm going into a certain industry, I find out the NAICS code of that industry, the North American Industrial Classification System, and you can identify the code number for any particular industry. You send that to RMA on annual statement studies, and we can do that for you. We're members of theirs, and you can get a statement study that shows that industry and what all the critical ratios are for that industry regarding their financial statements. So with that RMA annual statement studies, you will know everything you need to know about the company you're going to be looking for. You're going to know what their sales to asset ratio is going to be. You're going to know what their debt to equity ratio is supposed to be. You're going to know, and once you know all those things, you know exactly how to construct a financial statement for a company you haven't even seen yet. Because if you just know the sales to asset ratio of a company. Okay, and you know you're going to go for a $25 million company in sales. Well, once you know that ratio, to support that sales requires a certain amount of assets. Then you know the debt to asset ratio. So if you work all these ratios backward, you will construct the financial statement of a business you haven't even seen yet. So that helps you get a clear mental picture financially what a company's going to look like that you're seeking, and you haven't even seen the company yet. And then you start to think about, where is it going to be located? What part of the country? What is the physical facility going to look like? And you start to create this clear image. What's it going to be like to manage a company like that? What kind of employees am I going to have reporting to me? So you're painting an image for your subconscious mind. And once your subconscious mind gets it, this is what you're looking for, get out of the way, because it's going to find it for you. You want to make an offer on a business or location you would like to own. You're going to get the feeling for what it's like to be turned down for presenting a creative offer. Do you know I get turned down constantly for the creative offers I present to businesses? They say, I'll never do that. That's crazy. Why would a seller ever do that? Present that crazy creative offer to enough companies, guess what happens? There's somebody it fits. And after a while, when a guy hasn't been able to sell his business for 3 years, my creative offer starts to look pretty good. See, I just don't go out there to buy a business. I go out there to buy a business well. Get used to being turned down. It won't be the first time or the last. And it's all cool. It's part of the game. Remember patience. You must learn to temper the motivational part of our course with persistence and relax. All will fall into place in time. And be prepared to wait it out if necessary. Good negotiators let time work to their advantage. See, the seller, if he wants to sell, he's got to sell his business. As a buyer, you don't have to buy that business. You can buy another business. So for you, time is not an issue. You're waiting for the right one. You're waiting for a motivated seller. You're waiting for companies with certain types of characteristics to them. They're going to make them easy to finance, i.e. asset-based lenders or whatever technique you're going to use. If you can establish yourself in just one business in the next year, you're doing fine. That's all. It just takes one. And do not fail to start because you can't see all the answers from where you sit now. Have confidence that as the questions present themselves, so will the answers. That's what Bizarre Financing is all about. Now, if you have questions, I was going to try to take questions, but I see we're like 23 minutes after the hour. I went a little long here, and so I apologize for that. I see there's a couple of questions. Let me see if I can grab them real quick. How do I deal with sensory overload? I need to become an expert everywhere before I become successful. No, you don't. You don't have to become an expert everywhere. You need to have one area where you are extraordinarily proficient because that's going to be your strength. You need to have one strong suit. So you should decide what that is. What is it that you feel is your innate strong suit? Are you great in sales? Are you great in production? Are you great in purchasing? Are you just pick the area of business that you're great, pick the field that you feel that you have the most expertise in, and just accept that that's your specialty, and then start surrounding yourself with others who have the strengths in the other areas of the business. You can hire them, you can partner with them, you can joint venture with them. There's lots of ways you can work with other people. You don't have to have everything. So pick the area that you want to focus in. Make sure you're strong there so that other people want you to be part of what they're doing because you're so strong in that area. They want that handled by you. That's what draws potential partners to you. That's what draws investors to you. All right. That's it for questions. And because we're so late, I am going to wind this up. So again, I want to thank you for your enthusiastic presence here today. I look forward to seeing you a month from now on the first Wednesday of November.